Oh, hello, everybody out there. Another day, another debate. Never met Matt before. Seemed perfectly pleasant. Seemed bewilderingly sort of bringing up just random stuff. It's really incredible. But yeah, I actually had a good time. I think I could have gone like a couple of other hours on that one. Yeah, I think mostly the problem was sort of Gish Gallop. There was a lot of things in there. I mean that intro was really scattershot, but sort of I think I addressed it really well. I think I sort of my sort of pardon the pun religious note taking did really well. And got in there. Oh, who's around? Who's around? Daryl, you are first. You win. All the win to you. Ian, good to see you. Ember is here. Hello, Ember. Hello, Marty. Victoria, binge thinker. Were you making trouble in the chat? Were you making trouble for the creationists? Bear. Look, yeah, Bear Air, I get you. But it's good to be in here. And Big Bad Mama, don't think I didn't notice you. I always notice you when you're sending questions. Yeah, I'm sorry. It went longer than I expected, Marty. I get you. I get you. But I'm going to put this in the chat and pin it if you just allow me 1 second, because this is an open after show, so everybody is welcome. As long as we're kind of respectful and can talk, with respect, then everybody is welcome. I'll just put this in as open mic. And I don't know how long I'll go for. I must admit I haven't had lunch, and I do get cranky when I haven't had lunch. But we'll see how we go. I really would like to know what I got wrong. There's no chance I didn't get some things wrong in that, because I'm human, and I will get stuff wrong. But what I want to do is learn from my mistakes. So yeah, if people could point out if I got anything wrong, I'm more than happy to do so. So everyone is welcome. I will replace that pinned message. And I want to thank you all for just being here. It's kind of, I don't know if you've ever debated. Maybe you have, maybe you haven't. Some people out there has. Grayson, I'm looking in your direction and I see you there. You chant. There's a bit of a come down crash afterwards. It's thank you, Andrew. I really appreciate it, mate. I really do. Hello, Beamsy. How you doing, buddy?
That was very headache inducing.
It was sort of a lot of stuff that seemed like cherry picking of sort of scientific stuff, and sort of taking comments out of context and things like that. It really kind of hello, Andrew, welcome, mate. It really annoys me when people sort of go to scientific articles, they take problems out of those articles and then say, hey, it can't possibly be true, when they ignore the conclusions, and that kind of annoys me a little. Just a little.
Or they take a paper that says, oh, look, the Y chromosome of the human has approximately 3 mutations on average per generation. That means all people have three confirmed mutations per generation, even though half the population doesn't even have a Y chromosome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, hello, Zach. How are you? Welcome.
Hello.
Hey, Zach.
Hey, what's up?
I don't think we've met before, Zach. It's a pleasure to meet you.
It's a pleasure to meet you.
I didn't mean to have a question mark after that one. It's a pleasure to meet you. You're very welcome. Yeah, that was an ordeal. I don't. The whole idea that mutation rates are always the same, I don't know where they get this idea from. Just because it's in the Mendel's account of accounting that Stanford did, he has a constant mutation rate, and that's useful in some situations if you want to, sort of model a very large population. Generally, it's fine, but they've sort of applied that because it works over a large population and can give you information. They've applied it to everything equally, which is just baffling to me. I don't understand why.
I'll get you these 2 papers. One says that the average mutation rate per generation is approximately 3 across all chromosomes for 1 per every 3 generations. That is across all chromosomes, but particularly the X has 1 per 20 generations.
Right, but the Y mutates faster, as I understand it. Like it
The
is
Y
actually
is incredibly unstable, which is what the paper he brought up is, that shows approximately 3, sometimes more, sometimes less, but they use that. Oh, look, we have 3 mutations per generation across all chromosomes based on this Y chromosome. But I'll get these papers after I finish. That way I can show you them. But the average is 1 for every 2 to 3 generations. And some of them, like the X, is 1 for every 20 generations.
I'm a little confused on why they think that actually is relevant at all. Because all that the mutation rate is doing is it interacts with population size to tell you how much diversity you expect to have. This was like one of the reasons I hopped on is because one of the questions that Taylor asked towards the end was about why do we not have more mutations if we've been evolving for millions of years? We could have been evolving for billions of years and had this exact same amount of genetic diversity, because it's not time that dictates how much diversity you have. It's the interaction between population size and the mutation rate, and that over time you will actually equilibrate and have a stable level of diversity. You're not just going to continuously climb in the amount of diversity. And so it's a malformed question to even think that something about variance in the mutation rate is going to dictate differences in genetic diversity. What dictates differences in genetic diversity is population size.
And selection as a result of that also, right?
Sure. I mean, but selection acts to increase diversity, right? And so so for like in the mitochondria was one of the examples he wanted to give. The mitochondria is going to have limited diversity relative to a lot of the autosomes because it's inherited as a single unit and because it's basically coding from beginning to end, right? It's a very functional unit, and so it has strong purifying selection. We see this in like D&DS ratios, which is the rate of non-synonymous over synonymous substitutions is always less than 1, indicating very strong purifying selection in the mitochondria. But when you look across autosomes, you don't see that. D&DS can approach 1, indicating like a neutral pattern of evolution. So if we really want to think about like when did humans diverge, thinking about things like the mitochondria can actually be slightly misleading. We get a lot deeper ages when we look across the autosomes than in the mitochondria.
So that's why it's a mistake to apply just one mutation rate, because it's an average mutation rate and can vary.
Honestly, it's fine. Like really and truly, if you can apply, and the most recent rate is 1.17 e to the -8, or times 10 to the -8. That's the average pedigree germline mutation rate. And when you apply those numbers, you get a universal common ancestor across the genome that averages somewhere between 200 and 400,000 years, right? And so I don't understand how applying a fixed rate actually helps them. It doesn't seem to be to help their case.
By skewing the mass, by using the 3 per generation, they can actually reduce that down to about 6,300 years, and that points to their atom.
I just want to say that I love everybody on this panel.
Okay, well, we love you too, Grayson. Absolutely.
Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Yes, Doc.
I just wanted to say hi. Didn't get to
watch it yet, mate, you sound terrible. Get well soon, buddy.
It turns out the wildfires are freaking horrible for asthma.
Oof.
I shouldn't
I've done a lot more talking lately than I should have, but some ibuprofen and hot tea has been helping a bit.
Okay, well, you should rest, mate. Like, honestly.
I'll mostly just be in the background, like in the chat and stuff.
No worries. Hey, stay in the call if you want. I mean, I've got multiple spots open, no problem at all. It's just, I think reading Jurassic Park to your audience probably didn't help there, Doc. I just got to say.
Some of those voices killed me.
Yeah, and Zach, what they tried to do is basically say, okay, the found out amount of mutations that are within the human genome on average, they divided it by 6,000 odd years, and then they actually said, okay, that's about how many we need. So they went for a paper that has one that says that amount of mutations, and that's why they could put down on the Y chromosome.
Yeah, I struggle. I really struggle with this because when you apply the germline the empirically estimated mutation rate, and when you actually apply that and you do the math, there's no way to get 6,000 years out of it. And if you actually look at the standing levels of genetic diversity in humans, there's no way to get 6,000 years from that. So I struggle to even know how they had to have done some like serious finagling even to get 6,000 years from the Y chromosome. Like studies that have looked at the Y chromosome coalescent times are nowhere near 6,000 years. So there's some weirdness going on that I don't understand.
If I remember correctly, the last one I read about was about 40,000, 45,000 years for the Y chromosome, but X can go back to about 300 and something.
Yeah, I mean, the X has a much larger effective size.
Well, it all comes from Stanford. It's all coming from Stanford and his idea of genetic entropy. And sort of so that where he got the equation from, I believe that he said sort of, Stanford's using the equation wrong. And Stanford's disagreeing on the guy that made the equation about how to implement it. It's very, very strange. I'd have to look it up, but nobody in science recognizes genetic entropy. It's just not a thing. It's Stanford's thing.
Really quick, I just want to clarify. It's John Sanford.
Stanford, sorry, I do apologize.
Stanford implies that it actually has legitimacy coming from a prestigious institution like Stanford, but no, this is John Sanford. Just
well, you know what? I said I'd get things wrong. If that's the worst I do, I'm doing pretty well, quite frankly.
I'm just misunderstanding
so I've been doing a little bit of experimenting, and apparently if I go a bit more nasal, it hurts less. But just question, was this debate on evolution in general or human evolution?
Scientific evidence for evolution.
Okay. What was his answer to transitional fossils, if you brought that up?
They're lumpers. They lump things into categories, and for some reason he thought that what do you call it? He called it something paradox, the taxonomy paradox, was it?
Oh, yeah. I actually had something I want to say on that, because if you actually look at the exact paper he brought up, literally the next sentence disproves his point, because the exact next sentence mentions how we found Jurassic non-avian theropods before Archaeopteryx, such as Anchiornis and Epidexis come to mind, and a few others. But there's not really a temporal paradox anymore. That was kind of an idea from Fiducia and the birds are not dinosaurs.
The paper he brought refuted himself. So that's check one on your bingo card.
Right.
Yes.
So when I had joined, you guys were talking about I think it was still on the topic of transitional species, and I just thought it was hilarious. I joined when you were talking about Australopithecus, and how he was saying, oh, well, maybe it was just a monkey that was walking around on two legs, and that doesn't prove it's a transitional just because it has transitional human attributes. It could just be totally a separate created kind.
Evolution predicted exactly this, but no, that doesn't count as evolution.
And Mark, just I don't know if you are familiar with this paper. Sometimes I hear creationists citing it, but I thought it would have been a good one to bring up. It's called From Australopithecus to Homo: The Transition That Wasn't. So just the title is just kind of a little bit eye-catching, So creationists typically like to use it, but literally the last sentence of the abstract is just something that I like to bring into the conversations on Australopithecus and Homo, and where's the transition between those two. And it the last sentence reads, a fresh look at brain size, hand morphology, and earliest technology suggests that a number of key Homo attributes may already be present in generalized species of Australopithecus, and that adaptive distinctions in Homo are simply amplifications or extensions of ancient hominin trends. So they're literally saying that the line between genus Homo and genus Australopithecus are literally, it's so blurred and transitional that it was they're saying the transition that wasn't because it's so overlapping.
Well, this idea that we've got it's as I was trying to get across, it's not a problem for us that things are incredibly messy, and there's sort of a demarcation problem between, say, apes and humans. That's not a problem for us because we can say, hey, it's just a long series, and I tried as much as possible to sort of outline why that was the case. Do you have that paper handy, or a link to that paper handy, my good friend?
Yeah.
I would really love that. Oh, thank you so much. I'd really appreciate it.
Also, sorry, opportunity to use my catchphrase. Life is messy.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah. So I was trying to point out that this idea that there has to be a boundary here and a boundary there. There doesn't have to be a boundary anywhere. It's just a long spectrum of one turning into another. So
right, yeah,
this
like then you bring up
demarcation,
the so-called taxonomic boundary paradox at some point. I know he likes to bring that up at certain points.
But that only really exists in Lamarckian, and most biologists don't use Lamarckian classification anymore. That's what cladistics was made for, to make it a bit more cleaner and not as messy.
You mean Linnaean?
Yeah.
Linnaean, yeah.
Well, I mean, and we recognize that that it's not meant to like actually be like we're not trying to designate something real. Taxonomy is useful. It's like just a useful tool when you're trying to like distinguish things that are very obviously distinct, but we don't think that like species or families or genera are like real entities, right? They're just classification schemes made for simplicity.
Oh, Zach, what do you think of? I often hear an analogy that I quite like for species as being sort of like constellations of genetic diversity and variation. So like they kind of cluster together in these kind of, like little galactic clusters that we would call species, but you can get messy overlap and you can get, things that all cluster together. But, overall, there's like a pattern of, some clusters are more separate than others, and those might be, families or phyla or, what do you think of that kind of as an analogy?
Mayer had a really, and of course you would use those examples from like your love of physics, right?
Yeah.
But I think Mayer had a really good example of this where he described that evolution is continuous and yet species are discontinuous, like that it leads to discontinuity. And so the interest of the taxonomist is the interest of the evolution of discontinuity. And ultimately what you need for evolution to occur is you do need discontinuous patterns to emerge, right? You need reproductive isolation. And so while species are fuzzy things, reproductive isolation is very real. But since evolution is continuous, as Mayer said, it takes time for reproductive isolation to be complete. And so during that time of speciation, you have lots of gene flow that can occur. And even after reproductive isolation is pretty strong, the genome is actually quite porous. And we see this, for example, in humans and modern humans and Neanderthals, right? We know that they interbred and that parts of our genome do maintain alleles from Neanderthals, but overall we see strong patterns of selection weeding out that introgressed allele. So indicating that there was some reproductive isolation. So in the sense that evolution is continuous, speciation is continuous, but it does ultimately lead to these sort of discontinuities, these sort of, galactic constellations of isolated groups, as you called them.
Yeah, so just like in the real universe, these clusters are expanding farther and farther apart from each other as time goes on.
Yeah. No, yeah, I think that's fair. There is a little bit of complication in that sometimes populations will actually collapse back into each other. So like barriers can begin to emerge, but you can actually have this sort of like hybrid swarm that can emerge if those barriers fall, and then they will actually rehomogenize. So
like a galactic collision that forms a super galaxy.
Well, I think the fascinating...
You really want to make this galactic connection.
So yeah, he really does. Yeah, that's evolution. But I think the real fascinating one is ring species, where they basically separate out and then they're distinctly genetically different. And then they come back in, but they still can't interbreed because they've been separated. Like ring species is absolutely fascinating. I probably didn't talk about that at all, this debate, which I kind of regret a little. But
I think it's also really interesting how species we tend to think of as a lot more distant than that, and yet they sometimes can interbreed with one another and produce fertile offspring even at that. So even more separate lineages coming back together and merging together, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, ducks. There are some duck species that are 20 million years diverged, and they will still interbreed.
Right.
And again, it's because of the nature of the evolution of reproductive isolating barriers. They tend to be drift driven. They're very rarely driven by natural selection, so they tend to emerge very slowly. And so because of that,
it's almost as if evolution is occurring, that it takes time to occur. It's not this purely discontinuous thing like creationists would like it to be.
Exactly.
I want to go on the record that duck reproduction habits are some of the most messed up in the entire animal kingdom, and I do not stand for them.
Talking about messed up, I've just stalked Zach B. Hancock and found his channel. And apparently I'm
talking about
subscribed
messed
to
up.
No, hold on. You just hear me out. Okay, don't jump to conclusions. So apparently I was already subscribed to it, so I actually have fantastic taste. But he is 936 subscribers, which just is so close to the 1,000. I think I got to drop your link in there, and I will drop everybody's links. In
Congratulations on your success, Zach.
Thanks.
Well, it's actually interesting you brought up Meyer because I think at one point in the debate, I kind of just caught snippets of it here and there. But I think at one point Matt was talking about this quote from Meyer, how it was futile that we would find homology.
Seems quote mine to me.
This deep homology thing.
That was the biggest quote mine. There were a lot of big quote mines, but that might have been the biggest one. I literally have his books behind me. I can assure you he did not believe that we would not find homologies in genes. That's just preposterous.
Well, if anything, it seems to be related to deep homology, right? More so than just homology in general.
I think it's important to know that Mayer was not a geneticist. He had no genetics training at all. And he had some really wonky views on genetics. But he definitely thought that we would find deep homologies. So, but again, Mayer was not a geneticist, but that was still like maybe the biggest quote mine, other than the Moto Kimura quote that was later on.
Right. I guess I'm just curious what the bigger context of that particular quote is, if you know.
Oh, I don't know off the top of my head.
Okay. Yeah,
it's very hard to address so much bullshit in, like, I mean, you hear this thing and you go, oh, that's got to be a cherry pick out of a paper or a quote mine or something along those lines. But it's very hard to, like, sort of, if they throw out enough of this stuff, it's very hard to push back on it in the middle of it. So just sort of like, that doesn't sound right. But how do you know for sure? I don't know. I feel like I didn't do very well this debate. I really do.
But there was a lot of gish galloping. Like, it's hard to just like keep up with what he was, because he was just like, man, just really running through topics.
That's kind of both of their tactics, man. SFT alike. That's kind of what they do during debates usually.
Well, Matt is a literal SFT clone.
I guess so.
Like grown in a vat.
Grown in a vat, yeah.
But it's interesting to me that he brought up that quote specifically when, like, surely he knew that, even going back to like Linnaeus, and you guys talked about that, like, we knew there was morphological homology, for example. And that was that other paper he brought up regarding, most of our evolutionary trees are now wrong because molecular phylogenies tend to do better. I actually looked at some of the discussion and conclusions in that particular paper, and they actually go into a bit of depth as far as the limitations of both morphological and molecular data sets. And they conclude that both are necessary, of course, that they kind of, what's the word they used? I don't know if they use the word reciprocate or something to that effect.
Support one another kind of thing.
Yeah, they build off one another.
Yeah, and the way that he expressed it was that sort of, morphological is useless was the word he used, and I just went, oh, excuse me, that does not say useless. Like how like that is a total mischaracterization of what that was saying. It was just saying, hey, generally genetically we get more accuracy, and that's not surprising to
or
anybody.
Even worse, he was making it out to say as if morphological and molecular trees always completely disagree with one another, or even one particular data set, it just completely disagrees with each other, which is just flatly not the case.
Yeah, it's weird to think that one wouldn't believe that phenotypes are connected to genotypes, right? Like the reason that those trees correspond is because phenotypes are the emergent properties of genotypes, right? So like we can make trees with phenotypes if we can assume that they were coded for by a gene. Now, it becomes complicated when some of that variation is environmental variation, right? And so like there is some complication in phenotypes that you don't get in genotypes, but overall, for like gross morphology, it's a very fair assumption to make.
Here, wait, I'm sorry. Did he claim that phenotype was not based on genotype?
No, but he said that they were useless while genetic ones weren't useless, as if they're not like directly connected to it, or at least like pretty directly connected.
I'm sorry, what does that mean?
I know SFT specifically has also made the claim that something along the lines of, because they share similar phenotypes, they therefore should be expected to share similar genotypes, which, as far as I understand it, doesn't necessarily reflect the actual biology behind it. Like you can have convergence, for example. So you wouldn't necessarily expect a similar phenotype to have an exact similar genotype. Correct me if I'm there, Zach.
Yeah, and like we can see in the genes that different animals will use different pathways to achieve the same goal.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, you very, very rarely ever see the same underlying genetic changes for a convergent phenotype. That's one of the good ways to know whether or not it's convergence, is that you find multiple ways.
And then on the flip side, you can see where like two animals have taken the same original blueprint and modified it to suit different ends. Like our hands versus a bat's wing. They're based on the same structure, just modified to different ends.
Right.
Homologous structures, yeah. And that was something I considered doing, just structures and stuff. And I thought I did really well on that eye example. That sort of parallel evolution has thrown up multiple eyes over the course of it. So, you know, if you want to say, hey, everything's similar because it's designed, except for the parts that aren't designed together, they're completely different. And, you know, sort of, I don't know, it's just weird. Their arguments always have exceptions and things that don't fit into it.
I think the syncytin example that you gave was really good, that you have a different syncytin gene in mouse than you do in humans, despite both of us being placental mammals, right? And so like that the placenta is being developed by a different ERV in mice versus humans. It's like, well, if it's common design, why not just use the same material? That's their whole argument. And yet we see over and over again, the same, you know, like design is being coded for different underlying material.
Or even monotremes at all. You know, like why have the ability to lay eggs at all if placental mammals are the way to go? Why have mammals that are not, you know, marsupials, which have a different placental thing? I think it's sort of the common design thing falls down when you find vastly different sort of approaches to stuff. It's like, what, was God drunk that day, or what happened there?
I mean, the answer is fairly simple. First, God likes variety. Second, Satan is a trickster that likes to slip things past God. Ta-da!
And it's, if you remember at the start, he made all those predictions that he put up on his intro.
No, what was that?
I've got them on my screen at the moment.
Oh, okay. Well, do you want to share? I can share it on the thing if you.
I've put the copy of the picture into the Discord if you want to paint it straight out.
Oh yeah, sure.
It's not very clear because I had to basically screenshot it and I couldn't find it where he got it from.
I couldn't read it anyways when he showed it. The words were so tiny.
I will say one last thing on the convergence point is it's interesting how the fact that goes against their common design argument, but yet they also make it out to be as if it's a problem for like a fundamental issue for a nested hierarchy in evolutionary trees.
It is a terrible picture, Beansy. I've got to say, mate. This is terrible. But
it's the best I could do is taking it straight off the screen. I couldn't actually find an original.
No, I love your work, Beansy. It's fine. Okay. Single flood bottleneck. How is that proved? Single flood bottleneck. That's not a thing.
Yeah.
The second one are the same on both sides. That's literally the exact same thing. So a big haploblock versus haploblock disequilibrium is the exact same.
That's a big haploblock.
Those are equivalent terminologies.
And plus, we get overlap between the haplogroups. That's what I don't understand.
What is he referring to by a haploblock?
That's like a long stretch of DNA that is inherited as a unit. And so, like, generally, all right, if you think just parent to offspring, you're inheriting an entire chromosome. But when you take a population sample, what you expect is that the alleles in that sample should be in linkages equilibrium. They shouldn't be correlated. But LD, or linkage disequilibrium, means that you will actually find long stretches of identical sequence that are inherited as a single unit. And then there's some variants on there that we use to identify this as a haploblock, okay? And so we say this is haploblock 1, this is right, and we give them various names or whatever. But it's just like a long stretch of DNA that's mostly identical, but it has a couple of key diagnostic variants that we can then associate with a given lineage. That's a haploblock.
Okay, I get you. I only took basic genetics so far.
Yeah, and as soon as I saw that list, I knew I had to get a copy of it to see where he got it from, and sorry, I couldn't find it.
My favorite is high lifespan potential versus low genetic lifespan maximum. Like,
because 900 years for
it's been confirmed that humans can live to be 900 apparently, according to this.
I just love differently designed anatomical function versus degenerate leftover vestigial remnants. It's like, what? There's no vestigial stuff anymore. What about atavisms?
I'm sorry. One of these says all tortious recently related. What is a tortious?
What?
Well, where is that?
Is he trying to say tortoises?
Tortious. What does that even mean? Tortious.
Yeah, I'm sorry I couldn't clean it up anymore, but it's the best I could do.
I like how one of them literally just says genetic similarity confirmed versus no.
So apparently,
that's what we're talking about.
Apparently, tortious is involving a tort, like in law, right?
It's a typo, right?
Did he mean to say tortoise?
It's gotta be tortoise.
Is it? He made it twice.
No, guys. He's talking about torts. Don't you guys know about torts?
Recently related, all tortoise isolated millions of years ago. Very few total mutations. Because that's a false die-cut. Total mutation saturation. Come on.
I don't even know what that means. Like, he said that a couple of times about mutation saturation. I have no idea what he means.
Again, because of the constant
mutation rates.
It's again because of the constant mutation rate that they expect from the Y chromosome. Then they go, okay, let's do this over how many years, and then look, this is how many there should be, and it's too much for the gene to handle.
Yeah. Out of Middle East, does anyone actually believe in out of Middle East?
I think they did in like the 1700s.
Yeah.
I mean, all genetic evidence says out of East Africa, right?
Right.
Sure.
And where's the bottleneck if going through from Africa to Europe and Asia?
So Donnie and I have literally done an entire out of Africa debate, and it was the most frustrating debate I've done on his channel.
Really?
Yeah. Mainly because he didn't actually have any interest in debating out of Africa, and he literally he thought that the human bottleneck in Africa was the same as the out of Africa hypothesis. So he wanted to do the whole debate about the bottleneck that happened in Africa when the topic that we agreed on was out of Africa, and he thought that they were the same thing.
Okay.
But what they say about why there's so much more genetic variation within Africa, and they can't really explain why genetic variation and mutation load and all these things vary with distance from Africa. They can't explain that, but they say that the genetic variation is so high in Africa because Africans just have higher mutation rates than other people.
Yeah, that's just preposterous.
Yeah. And they point to Nathaniel Jeanson making the prediction that the Khoisan people, which are some of like the most ancient continuous cultural groups in the world, they predict that those people would have the highest mutation rates in the world. And they're like, well, until they've genetically tested the Khoisan, I guess we just can't say.
So, I mean, even if you don't want to go into genetics, where do we find not only the oldest but most simple stone tools in the entire world? It's in Africa. Where do we find a bunch of other human species? In Africa. Like, there's just so much that points to us coming from Africa.
They believe that those other human species are like degenerated humans. So they say, oh, well, it makes sense that they're all in Africa if the mutation rate is higher in Africa. And like, I've tried to say like, okay, so let's say you think that all mutations are bad and degenerate. So if you think that Africans have the highest mutation rates, you must therefore think that Africans are the most degenerate. And they're like, oh, no, I don't think that. And I'm like, oh, yeah, okay, because that's like literally your logic. You just don't want to own it.
Like something about being in Africa makes your mutation rate higher for some reason.
Maybe there's a lot of selective pressures, a lot of lions, a lot of hyenas, a lot of, I don't know, hippos. Hippos are dangerous. Sure, why not?
Hippos are dangerous.
Yeah, I don't understand that one. And just the idea that I just didn't get his point about there being like three people from the Ark, I think it was, like Ham, Ein, and Blind. I don't remember what he said. Like there were the three people, but that's not how haplogroups work. They're a nested hierarchy. Like that's not how they work at all. It wasn't three people split up and each made their own group. That's not how A, B, and C work.
Wasn't that from Nathaniel Jeanson misinterpreting how rooted versus unrooted trees work?
Yeah.
Or am I thinking of something else?
You're probably right. Actually, that rings a bell.
Because I feel like that's where that free haplogroups idea comes from.
I've literally had an entire 45-minute discussion about rooted versus unrooted trees on this, and I think that you just gave me like traumatic flashbacks.
No.
Poor Grayson with his PTSD.
Trauma is important, Grayson. I hope you see somebody. But Ian Chen coming in for an Australian dollary dues, $7.99. Mark, Grayson, Zach, if African Americans came from Africans, why are there still Africans? Well, checkmate.
It's a mystery.
I mean, yeah.
So these are some of the really. I mean, as much as it's frustrating to hear all of this sort of genetic stuff. At least they're not doing those ridiculous arguments. Sort of that's one that they've dropped. They've had to. Like it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
I loved like doing my research for this, and I did a fair bit actually. I know that I'm not the best with biology, but I'm really trying. Like finding that Ray Comfort went, well, where's the crocodile? And then we found a duck crocodile. It was too good. It was too good.
I think that was Kirk Cameron. That wasn't Ray Comfort.
It was both.
I think it was both of them. Yeah, I think it was both of them.
Okay.
Yeah, they had the.
I mean, would a terror bird count as a crocodile duck?
Not sure.
You said they dropped those arguments, but I would kind of slightly disagree. Like in this debate, for example, Matt brought up the fossil footprints older than Tiktaalik, and even then the Archaeopteryx bird temporal paradox, quote unquote. Like it's basically the same reasoning as if there are monkeys, why, or if humans evolved from monkeys, why are there still monkeys? Like that sort of thing. They're not really taking into account the branch.
He never addressed Archaeopteryx at all. Like he just sort of went sideways. I usually would press on that kind of thing. I don't know what it got into me. Like he didn't really address it, did he? He just sort of said.
You mentioned some of its specific features, and I didn't really see him go over that.
Yeah,
too much.
They did bring up one thing that really got to me. Why don't we find more transitional fossils in the fossil record? Every single
index fossils.
But literally every fossil is a transition.
Yeah,
but he said we should find index fossils all over the place, and that was in question time. And I thought, wait, we do. What are you talking about?
Like, wait, what did he say?
That's why they're called index fossils.
Yes.
So he was saying like index fossils aren't common.
He's like, we should find index fossils in every layer. And
Does
it's like,
he not understand what index fossils?
I don't know. I wanted to say something, but it was the question time, so I couldn't. We said it in the sort of the third, like sort of it's him, me, then him kind of thing, if it's directed towards him. And he just finished it off, and I was like,
what are you talking about?
Yeah, I know, right? They're index fossils. We use them because they're like it's just it was really weird.
For anyone who doesn't know, an index fossil is usually widespread geographically, but it appears in a very short period of geologic time. So if you find it, you know roughly what time the rock is.
Hey, Dino,
if you stratigraphic time, basically.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
If you find a trilobite, does that mean it's in the Jurassic period?
I mean, they sometimes bring up like the horseshoe crab and claim it's not changed for millions of years, or same thing with like coelacanths and whatnot.
Oh, the coelacanths are not even in the same. Oh.
The coelacanths is so funny because the modern species isn't the same as the old. Like, there's multiple.
Right.
Like, coelacanth is like a family, and it's not a species.
They treat it like a species. It's just.
I know, it's weird.
There is the coelacanth and nothing else.
Yeah, it's like saying that we found fossils of shark's teeth, so that means there's been no change.
I totally forgot about that. Oh, can we address that?
I forgot about that too. That was wild.
Please explain.
That was great.
Informed.
Okay, so he basically, I sort of pointed out, he sort of said diversity in sort of adaptability kind of thing. So the Archaeopteryx, God made it ages ago, and it was versatile. It was more pure because it could fly and run. And then he brought up some kind of bat that could take off from the ground and
fly
burrow.
and run.
Right.
But the thing is, like, he just brought it up as a case of like this is a more pristine. I'm like, yeah, but I mean, you basically get sauropods like brontosaurus. They're just basically big, heavy things that ate, like lots. They didn't, they couldn't fly or burrow or do any, sort of thing. So why is this?
If anything, from how the bones and musculature on Archaeopteryx works, we're pretty confident it actually flew less well compared to modern birds. It didn't have like the as good powered flight because it didn't have a keel structure to it. That sort of thing.
But he brought up that maybe God created sauropods, and there was something he was trying to quote that they stamped around and destroyed all of the vegetation so they couldn't have existed. It was the most baffling argument I've ever heard. Like, it was sort of literally, they stamped around, destroyed all the vegetation. So there's like a paradox with them or something, because
they stamped the vegetation them and starved to death, basically.
Yeah, basically. Like, I have no idea.
Some of their heads were literally on 20, 30, 40 foot long necks. I think they would reach the plants with their mouth before their feet.
Right.
Oh, that said, fun fact, we have found small dinosaurs that it looked like they drowned in sauropod footprints.
Oh, yeah.
Like they left footprints so deep that they just died in there. We've also found a dinosaur that it looks like died from a sauropod puking on it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Number one, everything's a transitional animal. Everything's in transition. So I think maybe you're talking about mosaics, possibly, but everything's transitional. And secondly, fix your caps lock.
Yeah.
I think creationists would really do well by actually taking like a historical geology, paleontology course. Because
absolutely. Hey, I probably should as well.
Sorry,
from that you get things like stem taxon, crown group, that sort of thing, and that would probably help to clear up some of the misconceptions they have about transitional forms and whatnot.
Like I'm sorry, I'm not being rude here, but insert the Nicolas Cage "you don't say" meme here.
I'm gonna disagree with this just based on like creationists like Nathaniel Jeanson, who literally like has a PhD in genetics and makes some of the dumbest arguments I've ever heard on the topic.
The question is whether he knows that he's making a dumb argument or whether he knows that his audience doesn't know he's making a dumb argument, right?
And counter to you, Grayson, there are plenty of scientists like, say, Murray Schweitzer, who started as a young Earth creationist but were convinced by the science. So it goes both ways, and it seems to go much more towards the scientific point of view for some reason.
That's true. It does depend on how ideologically captured they are.
Yeah.
Well, and I mean,
or how much they're paid.
There is a lot of creationist people whose, sort of belief in young Earth creation has not survived an encounter with, their paleontology class or their, it just doesn't, or their geology class. It just can't survive that. I mean, McQueen was so weird because I mean, that was so weird. That was weird. For a geologist, professor, he was remarkably...
He's not a geologist professor.
Yeah, I'm not entirely...
Is he a professor?
No. He claims to be. He doesn't... He's not. He has not been.
Okay, so what is he?
No, like, I've tried to look up McQueen online. I can't find anything about the guy. Like, other than him working for ICR, I can't see any attributions for a degree, no graduating class.
Which that's not suspicious by itself.
Well, he was a research assistant, not like a PhD student or whatever. I don't think that he has a PhD, but like from an accredited university anyway. But he was like a PhD assistant in a lab for what's the Radio Halos guy? Yeah, that guy. So he would
Gentry.
Gentry. That's right. He worked in Gentry's lab as like I think maybe a master's student or something like that. But
that would explain why he quotes or cites him a lot.
Yeah, but exactly. But that he does not have a PhD in geology.
I think that McQueen's thing is like I've only talked to him once on SFT's channel, and he seemed like he understood everything that I was saying, and he just rejects naturalism, right? He just basically rejects the scientific method and says, no, I won't accept methodological naturalism because I have a preconceived commitment to the Bible. So I'm going to, like, I understand where you're coming from, and I understand that's what the evidence shows, but I just can't accept it because I've already accepted it.
I agree with that. He seems to reject uniformitarianism more specifically, like the idea that sort of what happened in the past, we can tell by what's happening today and the evidence today. He seems to reject that entirely,
which is a fundamental assumption of science. It's right. It's one of the pillars of our ability to do science is to assume what we see today was always true, has always been happening. Because if it's not, then like what we do doesn't make any sense, right? Because it could just change its mind tomorrow, right?
Well, also we haven't had empirical evidence that it's been different.
Sure, yeah.
That's why there are three basal. Sorry.
Yeah. Whereas it's funny because in modern geology, at least, uniformitarianism in that sense hasn't strictly been the case for a few decades now.
And within science, we have three basal assumptions that we have to accept. Does the universe? We have to accept that the universe exists. We can understand anything from the universe, and that everything we understand about the universe constantly happens. Without those assumptions, it just will never work.
Like, if you want to assert that the laws of physics, say, were different in the past, you need to give evidence for it. Otherwise, we don't have anything we can work with. We deal
and
with
so
reality.
The question's got to be sort of if that uniformitarianism isn't true, and if induction doesn't work, then why does science work so well? Like, why does it keep because you can sort of go, okay, well, and at the risk of summoning Nick from the ether to tell us all about Hume's problem of induction, if the problem of induction exists, then induction would stop working. Like, if it was a problem, it kind of is getting to the point where we have to say, well, yeah, we can't give a foundation for it, but the fact that it works so well makes us so confident in induction that we can sort of say we're as confident about uniformitarianism as we are about just about anything around us, empirically.
I was going to say, if we brought Hume back from the dead and I showed him a coin where I flip it 1 trillion times and I get 1 trillion heads, and I ask Mr. Hume, what do you think the next coin flip is going to be? He's not going to say, well, I don't know, because you can't just induce, the problem of induction. I can't really say.
Yeah, no, I get you. Yeah. Well, I mean, Hume had a sort of, people went on to sort of say about the fallibility, you just have to accept that some presuppositions have to be made and work within that. I think that induction is one of those. You just sort of, the fact that it keeps working, yes, you can never tell when it's going to fail, but I think until it starts failing, it's not something to worry about.
Or even fails once.
Well, what amazes me is people pushing back against this and saying, uniformitarian, I reject that, and then they use it to, apply different situations to different other situations. Just because you've crossed on the green light across the road in the past doesn't mean it's going to happen in the future. So why aren't they standing beside the road?
They accept uniformitarianism in every other aspect of their life.
Exactly. Yeah. Well put, Zach. Yeah. Except for the things that contradict their religious view. That's essentially it. Yeah.
Or even within creation science, they accept it when it works for them.
Well, creation science is not a science. That's what I was
saying. Right. Anyway, yeah, in quotation marks.
Talk among yourself. I got to take a pee break because seriously, I've been at it, but I'll be right.
Hey guys, and I'm gonna head out. It's getting pretty late here, but it was good being on.
Okay, Grayson.
Really? Now that I left, trying to sneak away behind my back, is that it, Grayson? Is that it?
I thought he was
sneak away. I know. I was almost about to leave, and then I heard Grayson leave, and I'm like, no, it's not a party without Grayson. Look, I'm gonna grab your link and shove it in chat for everybody. Look, Grayson does amazing stuff on genetics, on biology, on all kinds of things. I've actually learned a lot from your channel, and you do debate as well. So let me tell you, Grayson, I know walking into that sort of creationist debating circle is not easy. It's not, and you've done 2 debates at a time in some cases, which is more than I could do. I do salute you, sir. Absolutely.
Yeah,
I wouldn't do one after
that
another.
Again. That was really stupid of me to do. That was 6 hours.
Well, apparently Taylor is debating Howard Stirrup, which is just insanity. I
was going to be debating Howard as well, but
really?
I'm going on a road trip tomorrow, so I canceled it. I rescheduled.
Wait, pause. Taylor the metaphysical gal, or
Snake was right?
No, Snake is right. Snake was right.
Oh, okay. There's too many Taylors.
Different Taylor.
Yeah, I was going to be debating Howard on the flat earth, but I had to reschedule because I'm going on a road trip. But yeah.
Yeah,
I thought it'd be funny. I mean, he literally believes that like rocks used to be organs or something.
I'm very aware. I'm painfully aware.
Yeah.
Yes, I am painful. He thinks that Prince Charles, or now King Charles, because he was related to Dracula, he's going to do some kind of secretive cabal to take over the world somehow.
Well, listen, that's just basic genetics. I mean,
well, yeah.
Nice. The education system has failed so many people.
If not for your trauma with Howard, he would be the focus of the next science theater. But we're going with
blame Howard for that. Okay, Mud Fossil is just as good. I mean, he gets a lot of his information from Mud Fossil, so you're essentially going for the same thing. But you can't blame the American education system for Howard. He's English and he lives in Ibiza, I believe, which is Spain. So this one isn't the US education system's fault for once. So
for once, for once.
Well,
for once, yeah.
On that note, I am gonna head out, but I will say, I am uploading a new video tomorrow. If the education system has failed you, as it did with me, explaining the medieval civilizations that existed in America during the Middle Ages. So look forward to that. It's
awesome.
I love Middle Ages stuff. Yeah.
Yep. Cool so most people don't really know which civilizations were in America at that time. So it'll be a good video for sure.
Well, I mean, everybody knows that the Lamanites and the Nephilites came over to America, and everybody knows that. Come on now.
Very true. And one of the civilizations I will be talking about actually has a religious system that is like very weirdly similar to Christianity, where they believe that there was one God in the sky and there were winged people up there, and then there was a horned monster demon underground in the underworld. So pretty interesting stuff.
Okay.
So all I'm just gonna say is that John Smith was right. I'm kidding.
Get out of here before we keep you another 10 minutes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'm going to just kick myself out here.
That said, everyone here, make sure to like this stream and subscribe to Mark Reid, all that good stuff.
Yeah. Who has got a piece? I'll be right back.
Remember, more than 3 shakes, you're playing with yourself.
Jeez.
So, Zach, do you happen to know if any creationists standing for truth or whatnot have responded to your ERV video yet about the specific points you brought up?
Donnie did email me after for some clarifying points about a paper, about a couple of papers that he was looking at. So I, just clarified some points for him, and that's pretty much the last that I've heard.
You're just going to be treated like Guts had given is. He's just going to try and discredit everything you say and completely fail at it.
Yeah.
Well, he had made an argument that ERV, or he tried to put forward a model, right, that unfixed or polymorphic ERVs are actually endogenous retroviruses, whereas fixed ones are designed, created units or whatever. So what I did is I just went into the literature and I found a bunch of examples of polymorphic ERVs that had secondarily acquired function, but not everyone in the population had them. And so if he accepts that, polymorphic ERVs really are endogenous retroviruses, then he would also have to accept that endogenous retroviruses can acquire function, something that he has been claiming forever that they can't.
But as far as you're aware, he hasn't publicly responded to that yet. Okay. No. Not terribly surprising.
I mean, I haven't watched every single stream on.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
On SFT's channel because some of them can be quite daunting to get through. But as far as I'm aware, no.
Yeah, I was just curious.
Meanwhile, there's a very simple debate I wish I could get someone to debate me on, but it seems hard to do.
What debate's that?
Just if birds are dinosaurs.
Ooh, nice.
That's it.
Simple but elegant.
Because it's a point a lot of creationists seem to disagree with, but none of them are actually willing to talk about it.
Have you talked to Donnie about scheduling something?
I've sent him a few emails. I haven't really heard back from him though.
Okay. Well, I mean, I can send him an email if you want, and just sort of say, "Hey, I've worked with you a fair bit, and you're more than pleasant, reasonable, et cetera, et cetera."
On that point,
if you
I
want to,
do want to say good job on your premiered video on the Dapper meme that you created. That was funny.
Thank you. I had a lot of fun with that.
I still think the Team 4-star is a bit more accurate of what would happen to him.
Yes, birds are birds. They are also dinosaurs.
They are also
just
animals.
saying.
Both by definition and derivation.
Like, I'm curious, like, do creationists really have a problem saying that we are animals, or do they disagree with that too?
No,
some don't.
They kind of say, yeah, categorically we're animals, but other animals are different animals, kind of thing. So they're not really opposed as a category of organism, but they're opposed to us lumping ourselves with, other animals for some reason. I mean, I have no idea why.
It's like the more specific you get, the bigger a problem they have.
Yeah,
they'll agree we're animals. They'll agree we're mammals. They'll agree maybe that we're primates, and not many of them will admit that we are great apes.
Right. It's funny just how they pick and choose there. That's interesting.
Living proof. We are animals. Sorry.
There's nothing.
Sorry.
Yeah, there's no categorization.
Eukaryotes that move around. We are animals.
Well, I love that thing.
All you need to be an animal.
Aaron Ra did, where he went down like, this is what a eukaryote is, this is what a vertebrate is, this is what and he went the entire
series.
Yeah, and we fit into every single categorization as we went down. Yeah, that was really good.
Lovely.
That's why cladistics is so much better than the old systems.
That's a Big Bad Mama said. What about the person asked, don't use time and evolution? They have not been proven fact. I laughed. I had to laugh when someone's saying, don't use time. How dare you? I don't know. Kind of weird.
Like, just, I don't know, the arrogance or audacity people have to claim entire scientific fields of study are just non-existent or false. Oh, it beats me. Like radiometric dating, they claim that that's all false for some reason.
There is some incredible audacity. I was in the chat going back and forth with someone that was telling me what and was not in the field of genetics. And I was like, my man, like, you're literally telling me a geneticist what is and is not in the field.
Right.
Like,
was it C science? That sounds like a C science thing to do.
Oh, I don't even interact with that guy. No, this was apologetics something.
Apologetics 101.
That sounds like it. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
well, thank goodness
Mars
it wasn't
Hill Apologetics. Aaron is a Satanist. What does that mean?
Good question.
Because he's not the kind of Satanist you're thinking of.
In regards to that McQueen thing you were mentioning before, I actually asked him how within the biblical flood could Tuff and Tuffite form?
Good question.
And he gave some weird example that it was wrapped in clay and just some weird example. Yeah, somehow it was waterproofed, but then why is it not straddled in those sort of it's.
Well, I think one time I asked him from the side chat, a question about lake varves and how he explains that, and I think like he then talked about unrelated things about ice cores and simple laminate that have nothing to do with lake varves or seasonal variation in sediment layers over time. Like, I don't know. That was just weird. He says a few weird things now and again.
But these are errors that geologists shouldn't make. They're basic things.
I mean, hey, Beamsy. Maybe you should go carbon date coal deposits.
I I'm going to hurt you one of these days.
Well, that was crazy. That I was blown away by that geologist, that PhD Harvard educated geologist, being astounded that carbon dating only went back 54,000 years. It blew my mind. I don't know how someone could go through Harvard, get a PhD in geology, and not understand the limits on carbon dating. It just... What was his name? It boggles the mind. Really.
We covered him in a live stream series I do. He did a presentation on why geology supports the global flood. And in part of it, he mentioned that we keep dating these coal deposits at between 40 and 50,000 years, which is closer to 6,000 years than 4.5 billion.
But he was trying to say that radiometric dating is wrong because we keep getting these carbon-14 dates that max out, that they're horribly off at but the problem with that is that because of the half-life of carbon is or C14 in particular is 5,700 and something. The maximum
again, it's interesting how they pick and choose, because when carbon dating suits them for archaeological purposes, then they readily accept that, but then anything beyond that, or just radiometric dating in general, they deny for some reason.
Oh yeah. So they're basically, and so carbon dating, because of the half-life is so short, it only has anything beyond 50 to 80,000 years, and it's just, you don't have enough carbon left to actually measure it. You just don't. That's a limitation of it. But there is no Harvard-educated PhD geologist that cannot know this. It's just... I'm a layperson, and I know that.
You actually spend 6 months studying it with a nuclear scientist to understand radiometric dating as part of the PhD program. And so, yes, you should actually fully understand the basics of it.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure you guys already know that radiometric dating, all the scientists behind that are just running a big conspiracy, and they're just throwing out the dates that don't work.
Hey,
yes, I am part of a conspiracy. I helped clean zircons for radiometric dating.
Of course, I knew it. Does anyone remember that McQueen claimed to have solved the heat problem? And they announced it, and it was this big fanfare, and they never explained it.
Wait, he did?
They came through. There was a video. I'm trying to find it now, but there was a video basically saying that we've solved the heat problem. And McQueen did this thing, and it was this
a
whole
live stream,
presentation.
and it was painful. It was so painful. He gave his evidence with a wine glass and a toilet roll.
No, he said he'd got the formulas to solve the problem, kind of thing, but he wasn't going to explain it on that stream. And then the stream vanished, and we never heard from it again, which was just hilarious.
And yet AIG hasn't done the same thing. Interesting.
I don't know. I can't see it.
I keep mentioning the problem of formation of limestone by itself, just because of the chemical reactions involved there, that there's enough limestone on the earth to release a significant amount of energy into the oceans if that were to happen in a single year.
Hey Beamsy.
Yeah.
Someone in the chat has brought up a question that you could probably do an equation for. The flood had too much water involved for there to be a heat problem. How much water would the Earth need in order to soak up all that heat?
Oh God, let's go.
What planetary body size would we need to be? I'm betting at least Neptune.
No, you'd have to be larger than that, because you're dealing with temperatures in excess of 12 million degrees Celsius.
Right. I mean, water has a high heat capacity. It's not that high.
No, depending on which state it starts in, but we'd have to take it as liquid. Then you'd have to take the coefficient to convert it from liquid to gas. But then you still have to worry about that. In some case, at some stage, it will end up as plasma. But we'll have to actually leave it, because you can't get it to gas. You'd have to try and find enough water to leave it, that's coefficient to remain as liquid.
Right. So at least some water stays on the surface of the Earth.
Yeah. And OSO patient, it's not a long stretch. It's really, really, really basic physics. Like, if you want all the radiometric decay we have to occur in 6,000 years or less, and have the continents sliding at a pace of miles per day only to come to a sudden stop, would there even be an Earth, or would it just be a ball of plasma that winked out?
And don't forget all the meteorite impacts.
I'll add to those.
Then all the lithification. Then you've also got to deal with the concretions. Then you've also got to deal with...
Let's stick with the big stuff.
Oh, they're all big stuff.
If the entirety of the Earth was covered in water in 40 days, it would compress the atmosphere as well. Don't forget about that one.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, look, Noah and everything else is long dead, and the Earth is gone. Congrats. Oh, wait, we're still here. Interesting.
Right. That's the beauty of deep time, isn't it?
Well, I think the heat problem is more just the sort of radioactive decay because it just does release that amount of heat. Look, the video with McQueen saying he solved the heat problem is no longer on the channel, which is interesting.
I mean,
either that or I'm having like a what's that thing where you're in an alternative universe?
Mandela
effect. Yeah, Mandela effect. That's it.
But yeah, sorry, Mark. You know the song "In the Hall of the Mountain King"?
Yeah, kind of. Yes.
Yeah. Just introducing all the ways that 6,000-year-long history would just increase the amount of heat. It really is just the Hall of the Mountain King starting to play. With every new thing, it just gets worse.
Well, I did remember I was showing you the maths with just sheer amount of ejecta that we were talking about just in VEI 6 and higher volcanoes last month. And that was stupid.
We wouldn't even have time for all the granite batholiths to cool to solid rock in 6,000 years. A lot of them take tens of thousands.
Or longer. And they
and
have
also
to get
granite
uplifted. How does that work?
Yeah, and then you've also got to deal with the aspect of how granite is formed. You would have to have large igneous provinces that are deep enough to stay liquefied long enough for the individual particulates to be noticeable.
Accreted to the right size?
Yeah, to actually be noticeable.
Well, that's actually like an interesting question. If there was so much heat on the Earth at that time, like how are these large igneous provinces able to form and stay preserved in the first place? Like when it just all mushed together, basically.
I mean, another question is, why do we even have granite at all? Because, like, if anything, we should have what's the extrusive version of granite, Beamsy? Is it dacite?
It's dacite.
Okay, we call it dacite here. But yeah, like, we shouldn't have any granite at all.
Yeah, it's probably the tomato problem we're talking about there.
Yeah.
So on a more biological things or side of things, if you don't mind me,
the geologists always take over and they dominate the stream. And don't think I didn't hear that shake joke when I went to the toilet, Beamsy. And thank you very much. I'm a shaking pragmatist. I will shake as much as necessary. So you can call it whatever you want.
I mean, hey, also, I'm a paleontologist. I can go both ways.
Well, look, you're geology adjacent, all right? So,
Well, I'm sure we're boring Zach here, so I was hoping to maybe ask him.
Yeah, back onto the biology, because it was evolution, and that is fucking geologist.
What can we say? We do a lot of boring stuff.
Oh, that's terrible. That is so bad. Like, seriously. That is so bad.
Painful.
Easy, stop digging a hole. Stop digging the hole deeper.
So Zach, have you ever come across the general argument? I guess it's kind of related to irreducible complexity, but more on the side of, if you didn't have all organ systems in place at once, then that integrated system couldn't evolve.
I don't come across arguments very often because I don't typically spend a ton of time engaging with creationists, to be honest with you.
Lucky.
Because I have, I don't know, I work in a lab and I have actual science to do.
Well, I feel like I'm being negged right now. That's
maybe as an example, sometimes an apologist will say well, how can you have, or which evolved first, the circulatory system or the nervous system?
Which first, the brain or the heart, that sort of thing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Or that woodpecker one, which was like the throat and the tongue, like the sticky tongue and the sort of throat.
Well, I like to point out specific animal lineages, like flatworms, for example, that don't have all those systems in place. Like, they don't have what we would call a heart or kidneys in the usual vertebrate sense, or even a brain in the vertebrate sense. So all these systems don't need to be all in that place all at once.
Yeah, I mean, each of these systems are specializations to novel environments, right? Like, you don't need a closed circulatory system in water. A lot of aquatic organisms, a lot of aquatic invertebrates don't have closed circulatory systems. You don't need, you don't need a lot of the sort of systems that we think about as complex vertebrates have to have, because we're no longer in water. And we need these sort of closed systems so we don't dry out. And so if you just start off, and a lot of it, I think, is just a lack of understanding of comparative anatomy. And people don't know a lot about invertebrates, sadly. So they think, when they think of animals, they think basically vertebrates. Like to them, there's their examples are dogs and cats. It's like, what's a flatworm? They have no idea. But the vast majority of living things are actually invertebrates. And so when we look to those organisms, you can see every type of organ system you can imagine, from all forms of complexity. If there is some intermediate organ system you're looking for, there is an invertebrate that has it in various different
or even
forms,
for specific organs like eyes, all found in these different lineages with different types of eyes.
Sure.
Is the flatworm the one that you can, it has a huge amount of stem cells? So
they have
cut it in half.
Yeah, they're called neoblasts in flatworms. They have like a thin, it's not skin, but it's like a thin epidermis, and then just under their epidermis is actually a layer of neoblasts. And so whenever you cut them, that underlying layer can just differentiate into anything, right? And so because of that, of that, they're capable of regenerating heads. They're capable of regenerating tails, whole organ systems. This is also what made a lot of the parasites of flatworms, which are the cestodes, the trematodes, etc., super successful. And a lot of them absorb food straight through their body wall, which is what the neoblast allowed a lot of the cestodes and trematodes to pull off. So
a lot of planarians are also it's really they're really just cute looking, and it's fun to look at how they behave and just that sort of
the polyclads and the
penis
triclads.
It's interesting.
So planarians are triclads, but they're in a broader group that includes the polyclads. The clad is about the number of digestive diverticula you have, little pockets. So the triclads have 3, but the polyclads have many. And the polyclads are actually really cool. They're like the marine flatworms that you see that do the penis fencing. A lot of them are hermaphroditic, and the way they determine who is going to like actually brew the eggs is who gets speared by the hypodermic
Turbularian specifically.
Turbularia is all of the free living flatworms. That includes. Like,
so we're not talking about hookworms or that sort of thing.
No,
or flukes.
Hookworms are not platies though. Hookworms are nematodes, right?
I thought they were platyhelminthes. I'm not sure. I may have gotten it backwards, but
yeah, they're nematodes.
I know there are a lot of parasitic platyhelminths.
There are, yeah, and those are like they're like tapeworms. Tapeworms.
Or maybe I was thinking of tapeworms.
Flukes. Yeah, the flukes are the parasitic flatworms.
I heard an explanation for sort of the way that sort of structures in organisms can form is sort of a tabletop kind of thing. Like they form, and then the top goes on, and then a leg can be taken away, kind of thing. So it looks like nothing can be taken away. But I wanted to get your opinion of that, Zach. Is that something you've run across before?
Can you explain that again? I'm not. Oh, I see what you're saying. A tabletop, as in, like adding
like
legs.
a table with sort of 3 braces to it, and then if you take away the middle one, for instance, it'll look like the table is irreducibly complex, but it isn't. It's just had functionality that can take it away.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm not sure if I'm describing that correctly.
No, I get it now. I didn't get it initially. No, I haven't actually heard that analogy before. But it's, I mean, I guess that's definitely one way that you can kind of think about it, is that, I guess I often think about it as you get yourself down. It's not like a rabbit hole, but you start down a particular path, and once you become reliant on certain structures, you can't back out of it, right? Like you started down an irreversible path. Gosh, what is this? Is this Dolo's law? I forget which one it is. But it's right. You're going to start down this particular path where you acquire all of these novel, systems, etc., and then you can't just remove them once you've acquired them because you become reliant upon them.
And I know there are a few supposed exceptions to Dolo's law, but it's generally true speaking, right?
Yeah.
Right. At least it's a situation of likelihoods, right? That sort of thing.
Yeah, basically, it's a parsimony. Kind of, it's like a parsimony style argument.
Right. I think it's interesting, like with the development of or evolution of new organs and structures specifically, kind of taking it from a developmental side of things and looking at how cells constantly exchange chemical messages with one another, so to speak, and communicate with one another and link up, form different shapes, that sort of thing. I've kind of always thought if in a world where creationists wanted to actually learn about that, then and understood how all the different ways cells kind of develop and interact with one another, maybe they'd better understand how these different structures evolve and change over time.
Yeah, I mean, taking a biology class is helpful.
Yeah.
And Dino, this is just for viscous drag, so it's only in a 2-dimensional plane. It gets worse when you put it into 3 dimensions.
Oh, sorry. Was that to me, Beamsy?
Yes.
So, really quick, I am sorry, but it is late for me, and I have work in the morning.
Yeah, no problem, mate.
I can talk.
Yeah, I was
really starting to hurt again.
I was going to say the same thing, but I wanted to talk about one more thing actually from the debate. If we
sure, yeah, please. Well, just before you do, just 1 second, I just want to say, Gur, are you hiding out in here from your own stream?
I kept trying to end it, but they kept going, so I was like, you know what, I'll let it play out, and I was like, all right, I might see y'all later, and then I bounced, and then I saw you were still streaming and still live, so I said, oh, thank God.
Okay, so I'm assuming you didn't see my debate and didn't really care either way, really.
I saw that it was going live, but I did not.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I always.
Your stream's still going, right? I just checked on it. It's still going.
Yeah, I'm surprised it's still going. Well, I'm not too surprised.
I see how it is, Gur.
I tried to get Andrew in, but then the
at any
floodgates
rate,
were open.
I do gotta go.
Yeah. No, get better
Y'all have
soon,
fun,
Doc.
been fun
Rest that
talking.
voice, mate. Silky,
I'll
smooth
attempt.
tones of that voice.
No
more reading Jurassic Park, all right? It's obviously
no more of those really
relax
bad
your voice.
Later.
Take
honey
care,
water. Mate. Warm honey water.
Honey water. There you go. Sorry, but welcome, Gerd. Welcome anyway. And sorry, Zach, you had something to bring up about the debate.
Yeah, I forget now exactly when it came up, or if it was a question or just I feel like it was during the Q&A session. That's the freshest part on my mind. But there was a question about whether or not humans are like still under selection. I don't remember what the question led to this. And this is a topic that I'm really interested in and that I see people often talk about. And I think we often frame it in the wrong way, in that humans are still under selection, and we have done absolutely nothing to change the selection that we're under. What we have changed is the distribution of fitness effects of mutations themselves, right? So if you think about selection is nothing more than the change in the frequency of an allele because that allele is impacting your fitness, right? That's literally just what selection is. And so if an allele is no longer impacting your fitness, then selection is not acting. And it also means that allele is no longer detrimental. So if you imagine like a distribution of fitness effects where there's some neutral at 0 and then below 0 is deleterious, above is beneficial, there's some distribution, right?
Right. Yeah.
What animals, and like there's no reason really to single out humans, animals change their environment. And by changing their environment, they actually can shift the distribution of what every single mutation, like what effect every single mutation can have on them is. Gotcha. And so what we have done is we've changed our environment such that me needing to wear glasses is no longer a deleterious mutation because it doesn't affect my fitness, right? And so I think, and the reason I say this is because it's almost a historical argument at this point. There's been for many, many years an argument that humans are degrading and that we're degrading because of medicine. And so medical intervention has allowed deleterious mutations to accumulate and humans are going downhill because of it. Yeah, and I think this is a very dangerous argument. And it's actually a eugenics argument. That's the argument eugenicists have made for 150 years. And I think it's very important that we recognize that humans are not degrading, that those mutations are no longer deleterious because of modern medicine, right? We've shifted the effects of those mutations such that they are now neutral. So I think it's important that we think about the way that we talk about this.
I get that. And I certainly will take them, but I certainly wasn't framing it as a sort of what is it? Eugenics argument. I think it was just like you can point out that sort of direct genetic manipulation would be the way to out yourself from that situation. But yeah, no, it's a fair point that sort of I guess that if or what ordinarily would be the deleterious mutations did build up, then eventually they would be selected for, even with the most modern medicine, they would be selected against, with the most modern medicine. So, I mean, I suppose I can see it that way. I can't even remember where I learned that. I think it was sort of just a talk that somebody gave on it. But that's a fair point.
It's one of those kinds of things that I've heard a lot. It's floating around and people talk about it. And it makes intuitive sense to think, we've removed ourselves from selection. We've got modern medicine, etc. But I think that's a false way to think about it. That the real, because if we still have the same number of offspring, for example, if I have a mutation that makes me have to wear glasses, but I have the same number of offspring as the average in the population, then that mutation is not under selection. Right. It doesn't matter that I have to wear glasses. My fitness has not changed. Therefore, there was no selection. So all that mutation represents is neutral not actually something deleterious.
So you're just sort of saying, hey, we've just increased the tolerance for detrimental mutations so that most of them are now neutral that would have been deleterious in the past.
So yeah, we've shifted the distribution of fitness effects, and I think it's important that we not think about them as even detrimental, because what the fitness effect of any mutation is environmental context. It's like, what is the context in which that mutation arises? So if it had arisen in the savannah where I was being hunted by big cats, then it would be deleterious. But since it has arisen in an environment where I'm not, it's not deleterious. Does that make sense?
Yep, absolutely. That's a good framing.
Going back to the simple example of brown bears versus polar bears, which environment you put them in.
Yeah, it's all mutation effects. And it's creationists do this a lot, and so I worry that we almost get into their way of thinking that there is some absolute effect of a mutation that is deleterious, neutral, beneficial. But any effect of a mutation is solely determined by the environment in which it arises.
Right, yeah, because they typically say like, well, it has this new mutation, but it's not new information, because if you put it back into the old environment, then it would probably go extinct. Like, yeah, obviously, but that's
the old environment's no longer relevant. It's the environment that they're in that matters, right? So I just wanted to make that point because I think it's kind of important.
That's fair. That's completely fair.
Not the least, because it also leads to kind of some genetic entropy stuff by itself.
Sorry, but I wanted to know if you had any other feedback for me.
No, I always enjoy your debates. I always think you do a really good job.
Oh, thank you.
I think that this one in particular was difficult because he just gish galloped so hard.
He said so much.
And so I think it was really hard to even try to address all the things that he said. I mean, maybe even just like if you were to debate him again, I would just be like, okay, I'm going to ignore 99% of what you said, and we're going to pick the one thing, and then we're just going to drive that one thing home, because it became very much of like chasing his tail all over the place.
Yeah, and
I was amazed.
This is kind of his and SFP's thing.
I brought up 3 things to focus on, and he didn't address any of them in his rebuttal. It's just that's crazy. I did the best.
They typically do is they say X, Y, and Z thing, and then they say one last thing. They say, okay, what are your thoughts on this, the particular last thing they've said? And that kind of gets you forgetting about everything else you want to talk about prior to that. So maybe it's just a rhetoric
pretty good. I'm pretty good with Gish Gallop. I noticed he was knocked when I managed to address everything in his opening, because there was tons in there and I addressed all of it. And then when it came to sort of the conversation, he was like, well, I can't go over all of it, which was great. I think Ember's coming in to tell you off, Ger, just a second.
Bring it, bruh.
I also want to say that I really like that you did the what is science and what is scientific evidence. The first 2 slides you went through. I thought that was really good, and I worry that oftentimes we don't even know what we mean when we say what scientific evidence is, and so I think it's really important to lay that foundation. So I thought that was really good as well.
Yeah, as I've done more debates, I realize sort of definitions are incredibly important up front. So what you're talking about, even if you tell, the audience knows what I'm talking about. Yeah, they might not. And plus, I did the debate sort of about creationism science or young Earth creationism science. So I gave the definitions there. So I thought last night, well, it's probably fair if I do them again for me as well, hold myself to the same standard that I do the creationists, which is important. If we want to be intellectually honest, we have to hold ourselves to the same standards that we expect from them. I just wish they would do the same. That's all. That would be really cool.
Yeah. Well, I really enjoyed it. Like I said, I always enjoy all your debates. But I am also going to go to bed. It's pretty late here.
Yeah, no, totally. Thanks so much for coming, Zach. And it's really good to meet you. I really appreciate it. If you're in the mood to do something, we're always on or doing something. Or if you're doing something, do invite us, and we'll come and hijack your channel if you really was to, because that's the kind of thing that we do.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I'm just meeting you, but yeah, we're always down to hijack other people's channels, right, Gur?
Oh, absolutely.
That's so true.
All right. See you, folks.
See you, Zach.
See you, Zach. Take care, buddy.
Bye, Zach. Amber, what are you doing here?
Hello there.
God damn, what's Leo doing?
Hello.
I'll be right back. I got to turn off the oven.
You've chased Gur out of his own stream, and now you've chased him out of this stream as well.
I didn't want to end it. I was like, oh, they're talking good stuff, but I'm just too tired to listen.
Yeah, we got to do a discussion about what is the nature of consciousness and could we recognize artificial intelligence and such. And Gur just came over here. And
it is a good question.
So, since I was watching both streams, I was in Gur's, but I was watching this one. I'm like, motherfucker, Gurry's in the other stream. He left his own show to go over here.
Well, hey. Like, no, you're not hassling Gur in this stream. I run a respectful stream, so
I'm just pointing out how hilarious it is.
The second time I noticed Gur was gone, I was like, you know what? Let me go check out Mark.
I knew that was going to happen. I couldn't decide what stream I wanted to join, but I was like, oh, I like Mark. I'll go to Mark's stream.
Yeah, Mark's not going to pressure you to talk about AI or anything nonsense like that. John Rapp for $2 Australian. Thank you so much. Damn it, Mark, I did that and ended up here. Well, apparently everyone's ending up here, apparently. So you're not alone, John. You're not alone.
You're the epicenter of the universe tonight, Mark.
Apparently so. It's
really
good to see.
One thing we have in common, Gur, is we're both stream ninjas. We slip here and there out of nowhere.
Exactly.
And incidentally, Gur, Corey now has your stream to himself. Just so you know.
Is he saying anything? What's he rambling about?
I have no idea.
I'm scared to go back. I
want to end it soon.
But no, let me ask you, since I did not see the debate, what was the topic and how do you feel like you did?
Is there evidence for evolution?
I think I could have done better. I think that
wow.
I was a bit tired. My note taking wasn't as good as it usually is, but yeah, it wasn't bad. There was a lot of gish gulp, a lot to follow.
I'm sure.
I think I did all right. I think I scored a few points here and there, which is good. But
I did catch a little bit of it. Like I said, there were so many streams going on today, and frankly, I don't like to give SFT the views. I'd rather wait till you mirror it.
No, that's perfectly understandable. Yeah, no, I totally
did want to say to Gur really quickly. Yeah, Corey is role playing God on your channel.
Oh my god, I see it.
He's literally role playing. It's just fucking hilarious.
Well, what I did was before I came over here, I shared the link to Mark's stream, and I was like, everybody, Mark's streaming because this one's going to end soon, and then it just kept going. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to let it play out. I'll just bounce.
You know what I should do? I should go over to Gur's stream. That's what I should do.
Go talk to God.
Yeah.
Gur, you know what you should
I'm
do?
Just like, this is great. I leave, and God finally shows up.
Yeah, that's always the way.
But Gur, you should go back over, stay in the backstage, and then end the stream. I think you can end it from the backstage. You should, so that Corey doesn't sit. He's just like, whoa, what the fuck? And just do not ever enter the studio. Just stay backstage and
don't even let him know.
Yeah, dude.
Do you have a link to your stream yard?
Oh yeah. Hold on.
Oh, that was a response to me hitting the like button. Oh yeah, okay. Yeah, no, I get it. I said that I hit the like button so hard it speciated into the subscribe button. So he did that and ended up here. Yeah, it's always a danger. Oh yeah. No, I got to do this. All
right.
Oh.
Okay.
Hey.
And then
this
there
is
were
neat.
5.
I'm literally on 2 streams at the same time.
Oh, he left this stream. Okay. Sorry, I had to go backstage to. I gotta mute this. Hold on. This is driving me nuts. All right. So Mark Reid is on Gur streams.
Yeah.
And so is Amber.
Mark has questions for God.
Wow, the tables have turned. Literally.
Wait, I'm confused. Why do I hear one tab but not the other?
You might. I don't know. I don't know what kind of computer you have.
Wait, can everyone else hear Mark?
No. I mean, if I unmuted your stream in YouTube, I can.
Hold on.
Oh yeah, this tab
Okay,
open.
it's muted now.
I was just trolling Corey.
What the fuck? Jesus fucking Christ. All right, let me just exit out of my stream.
Platypus are fantastic critters.
They're very intriguing. Like, it's like God had a drug day.
God was waxing poetic about platypi.
Platypus.
Because I'm on both streams at the same time. This is ridiculous.
I would try to mute one tab and then it would mute all the others. And I'm like, why is it muting everything? I don't know.
Anyways. It's interesting because when the platypus was first discovered back in, I think, like 1800s, I might be wrong, but like they thought it was an actual hoax. Like it was just different pieces of animals stitched together. Because like, what the heck is this?
I'm still not convinced it's not a hoax. I've heard who's that naturist dude, the British guy with the accent, Attenborough.
Oh yeah, right. David Attenborough.
Yeah. Like I've heard David Attenborough talk about platypi even, and I'm still not convinced that they're real.
They keep getting weirder. Like did you know this? For example, they don't have stomachs.
I can tell too much sacramental wine. Is it true that platypi don't have stomachs?
That's not true, is it?
The voices in my head are telling me this.
Wait. They don't have stomachs?
Yeah, I watched I think it's Bizarre Beast. It's a YouTube channel. They basically were talking about they don't have stomachs. It's probably something to do with what they eat. It's a lot of basic food.
Its gullet connects directly to the intestines.
Yep, sounds about right.
What the hell?
Well,
yeah,
okay.
Very much for common design, right?
God says that they do, even though he didn't want them to.
He was having a drunk day.
He's having a drunk day today.
It was.
It's like to take the creationist car analogy. It's like designing a car and forgetting the fuel tank, right? Like it's just dumb. Like seriously, what the hell?
Well, with that said, I've got to bounce. Mark, love you.
Yeah.
I hate him.
What about the nature of consciousness?
And everyone else, take care.
Leave that to the neuroscientists. I got to take off too because I'm about to pass out at my computer.
Yeah, well, I'll probably shut down the stream because I really need something to eat and I'm hungry.
Peace out,
that's
guys.
okay. Yeah. Good to see you, Leo and Ember. Always a pleasure as usual. Take care, man. Like seriously, thanks for dropping in. Really appreciate it.
Sorry, I've just been doing that in side chat to explain to Osso why it's so stupid.
Yeah, we do.
Why? What's so stupid?
Creationists inside chat.
Oh shoot! I'm losing track of which stream I'm in here.
Look, it's fine as long as you're not preaching or threatening or anything. Yeah, I just we don't believe in Satan. We don't believe in devils. We don't believe in.
I'm just
all of this stuff.
That's it.
Yeah. So, I don't think
too.
I'm living in communist. I think the healthcare would be better if we were living in communist humanism. Quite frankly, but
night God, come back soon.
Night God. Yeah.
Okay. Gerstream is actually terminated now.
Okay,
cool. All right. Well, I'm probably going to go as well. Let me see if anybody else has got anything on to direct you, wonderful people, to.
I'm probably going to take off because I need to get some sleep.
Yeah, apparently Ger's the only one going. But take care, everybody.
Such a ridiculous night. I had to keep going with it.
Yep.
Look, all I knew was I just suddenly got invaded by Ger, and I checked Ger's stream, and Ger's stream is going without him.
One thing led to another.
I finally figured out that
if you wanted to hide, he could just get off the air.
He could, but this was so much more funny.
Well, it really was. It really was. Yeah, just crazy.
With basic mathematics, I've just figured out that just for the frictional forces of one of the tectonic plates, we would need about 1.6 billion Earths worth of water to cool it down enough.
Wow.
That's
okay,
a lot of water.
And that's friction for one continental plate.
Yeah, I just worked it out with just the Pacific plate.
Wow. I think that's a good place to end it.
Yeah, that's a lot of water. So yeah, a lot more than the fountains of the deep were able to provide on that circumstance. Wow. But thank you ever so much, everybody. Really appreciate it. Thank you for listening, everyone. I do apologize, I've got to go, but I've been in that debate was actually like three and something hours. So yeah, I'm kind of a bit washed out. So I do apologize.
Great job on your stamina.
Oh, thank you. I've been practicing. Usually it's only my wife that says that, but never mind. Sorry, I had to.
Drew's been rubbing off on you, Mark.
I know, right? Ger comes in, I just go crazy.
He's such
thank
a
you so
influence.
much, everybody. Look, we knew that already, right? Ger is a horrible influence on everybody. No, I love Ger. Ger's amazing.
In a good way.
He's a really awesome guy. Yeah, absolutely. Andrew, thank you so much. Beamsy, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And Ember, thanks for coming in at the tail end. It's always a pleasure to see you again. And we'll probably be doing stuff in the near future, I would imagine.
We
got
tomorrow.
What have we got on tomorrow? Is it my turn or yours?
I think it's mine. Did I say? Yeah, I've got
I think it's yours.
A thing. Oh, I gotta open the thing and click the buttons to find the thing.
It is.
We're doing Hitchens versus John Lennox.
Okay, beautiful. Okay, well, I'll see you there for that. That's tomorrow on Ember's channel, and I will include a link because I can do that.
Hell yeah.
I will include a link for Ember.
And what can I say? I usually dig out the worst about people.
Oh yeah.
And here, assuming the thing actually goes through. Aha, there we go.
Yeah.
That's
Beautiful.
The link for the debate review tomorrow. So if you want to click notify me, then whether you're subscribed to me or not, you'll get a notification when that show starts.
Beautiful. All right, fantastic. And Andrew, do you have a web YouTube channel or anything? I don't think you do. I think I've searched around for yours before. Do you have anything
I just
you want
frequent other channels usually, mostly Answers in Atheism. Well, at least previously, I don't know if he's doing much streaming or kind of few and far between now, but that's the one I usually frequent. So,
yeah, sure, not a problem. Well, let me know if you do get anything, Beamsy. I know you're anonymous on the internet because you are, sort of your channel is not for PG. But thank you so much, everybody, for coming and joining us. And don't forget to be kind to yourself and be kind to everybody else.
Except
because that. Look, no, be kind to Ger. Ger just gets.
No, I'm just teasing.
People pick on Ger. I feel really sorry. Maybe I'm just a bleeding heart liberal, but I feel really sorry.
That's kind of how we show affection to Ger is by singling him out and making Ger, you're terrible or whatever. But that's how we show Ger.
It just shows true friendship, I guess.
Mark, I found what you were looking for.
Oh, that's on a different channel. Yeah.
There you go.
Oh, nice. Okay, beautiful. All right, thanks everybody, and do take care. I will see you in the future.
Bye.